Hi, everybody. I am Julie Huck with the Agent of Change platform and the Ed Huck team. And I have a very special guest here today with me. His name is Bob Lempke, and he is actually the husband of one of our top producing agents on our team, Connie Lempke. Connie has been an agent on our team for almost 6 years, I think, 6 or 7 years. She produces a very high level of real estate. And I brought Bob on because I think it's a really common topic right now that I'm hearing a lot about is how do I balance my work and home life, especially agents who are newer to the industry. They've only been in the industry, a few years, and they're wondering, my husband is frustrated with me, my kids are frustrated with me. How do I make these adjustments? And I thought Bob was the perfect person to talk to because he's been through it and he is living as a spouse of a real estate agent. So, hi, Bob. Thanks for coming.
Hey, Julie, thanks for having me. I'm not a special guest very often, so this is exciting. It's exciting for me to be a special guest.
Well, I'm excited to have you. You are very special. So, Bob, tell me about just what your family looks like, and just the structure of your kids, your family, what you do for work, and we'll just kind of get a background here.
Great. So again, I'm Bob Lempke. My wife is Connie, who works on the Ed Huck team, and I think it's coming up on 7 years, but I'm kind of with you. I'm not 100% sure how long exactly.
Too bad she's not here. She would tell us, I'm sure.
Yeah. So we have been, Connie and I have been together for 35 years as a married couple, a little longer than that before. We have 5 children, most of them grown. Actually, all of them kind of grown. Our youngest is about ready to go off to college in a couple weeks, actually. But beyond that, most of our kids, and even most of the time, Connie has been selling real estate. We've pretty much had like Andrew at home, who's our youngest. The rest of them have kind of been off, at least minimally, at college, or so she's had a little more time on her hands, which I think is kind of part of what drove her into the decision to become an agent. But we had, while we were young, when all the kids were younger, she spent most of her time just on the kids and being a stay-home mom, and she had a really, really good career in sales when we were younger. And then as soon as she had our first child, which is now 31 years ago, she quit her job and just kind of decided to be a stay-home mom, which she did for the next, I don't know, I'd have to do the math, but 20 some odd years. And then again, 6 or 7 years ago, she decided to get back into a career.
Yeah. Right.
So that's a little bit about us. For me, I actually sell software for a living. I run sales and marketing. I'm a business partner in a company called Mobile Locker. It's a software as a service platform that we sell to pharmaceutical companies that basically helps their field reps engage in a more efficient, more effective way with their physician targets. So pharmaceutical companies primarily sell to doctors, and our platform helps them engage more directly and efficiently with their targets. So that's kind of a little bit on me. I've been selling software in some form or fashion for the better part of 30 some odd years. So
which is why Connie chose to stay home with the 5 kids, because you were always in sales. And did you travel a lot too when
I
you
did? Yeah. So I've gone through different variations of my life. I've worked for a bunch of different companies, big companies, small companies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had jobs where I've traveled almost full time.
Right.
I've had jobs where I travel, 40% of the time, whatever it is. So that was hugely helpful for our family to have Connie not have to worry about coverage and all that kind of stuff. So made me, not only appreciative of, but was able to be a lot more, focused on my career when I didn't have to worry about things on the home front.
So this is interesting. So how did her deciding to get into real estate, how did that come up? And what drove her to say, hey, you know what, I think it's my time to get back into the workforce, and I think it's real estate? Do you remember
So that's
that?
a great question.
Mm-hmm.
So she was actually, so for some period of time, kind of just to kind of keep herself busy and focused and engaged out of the house, she was a preschool teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what mother of five after raising, 5 kids for 20 some odd years wouldn't want to be a preschool teacher, right? So she did that for many, many years, very happy, loved it. Loved the opportunity to just get out of the house and hang out with, the kids. And it was really, really good for her. And after, she actually just got to a point, I think, when our youngest kid kind of was in, late grade school, seventh, eighth grade, I think, just probably less to do at home. So she was probably just feeling a little, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she was probably just feeling like, she needed a little more. I don't know what, I don't think bored. I don't think she's ever been bored,
No.
but probably just feeling like she had more to offer, more to give.
Mhm.
And, was looking for something just more than just a couple days a week as a preschool teacher. So I think that was primarily it. She just kind of wanted to stay focused and stay sharp, and just felt that she had a more to give. So I think what ultimately happened is one of her good friends, and Mary Goodwin, who is also a critical member of your team. I think they started chatting one day, and kind of Mary was saying it's a really good way to get out there and take advantage of your skills and your network and all of those types of things. And so, and Mary, I think, was a really, really shining good example of someone who had already done that. She went through almost the similar path, I think, that Connie did, in terms of raising kids and then getting back out. And so I think Mary was a huge impetus in that process, and they talked more and more and more about it. And ultimately she just kind of decided to give it a shot.
Yeah. So when she decided to give it a shot, what did that transition look like? Having your wife at home for 25 plus years, taking care of the home and the family, and now she's really putting both feet into real estate in this new career. What did that look like for you and I mean, you did have Andrew at home, right?
Yeah, so Andrew
Yeah.
has always been at home. So, and then
Yeah,
interestingly
he's still
enough,
home.
we've had kids kind of, like many people do, kids kind of cycle in and out, right? They're gone, they come back, they're gone, they come back. So we had a little bit of that too.
Yeah.
One went, one was at school, then came back, stayed with us for a while, then moved out again. So that's just kind of how life works. They cycle in and out. You kind of have a revolving door, right? So we had a little bit of that, and I'll be very honest, it wasn't easy at the beginning, largely because it's a huge adjustment, right? So you've gone from having her available all the time to being almost never available. And especially the busier and more active she gets. I mean, I don't necessarily think, and I just know this from seeing some of the people she works with, and like when she's doing transactions and things like that, I don't necessarily know that everybody jumps in the way she jumped in, which was like kind of how she does everything, just kind of like full throttle.
Right.
She just kind of, when she does something, she does it full throttle. And so she really got into it, and she decided to do it full time, and really focus on it and get good at it and train and do all sorts of things that, I think she from the get-go wanted to be really good.
Yeah.
And I think as she got into it more and more, she liked it more. She loved helping people. She loved the results. She loved seeing people achieve goals, and, getting things that they were out to get, and getting the house they wanted, and all those types of things, and getting the outcomes they wanted. And she loves that. She thrives on that.
Right.
She just loves seeing people succeed and seeing people win, which is kind of what she did before she was an agent too, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so she jumped in full guns. And so that part was hard, because you have gone from being kind of the focus. Andrew and I both, like, we were both at home, and we kind of went from being the focus to being like, well, what about us? Like raising our hands, saying, hey, over here, we're over here, remember us? So that was a transition period, no doubt about it. And it was, I'm not going to lie and say it was easy, because at times it probably wasn't easy, because, you went from being the big priority to being somewhere in the priority list.
Right. Right. So what did you do to adjust to that difference in your family and your relationship, but also support her, with what she really wanted to do?
She would probably tell you I complained a lot. But I don't know. I think we
That's
probably
honest.
just powered. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we just powered through it.
Mhm.
we had our routine, and, I think we've always been around here pretty good at picking up, when she's gone, I'll do things or do more or whatever it is. So that, we all kind of have our role here. So probably had to do a little bit more of the stuff around the house that we probably shared more in the past. She did, let's say she did 70-30. Maybe I picked up, a few percentage points along the way of things that she would otherwise have done. So, over the course of time, and then, look, at the end of the day, she was really happy. She loved it. So it makes it easier. I'm sure it was hard. It was hard for both of us, right? Because, you would go from texting her to get an instant response to not getting an instant response because she's with clients and she doesn't like to respond to texts when she's in clients and those types. So those little adjustments there were harder because you just had to get used to it. And, it wasn't like she didn't like us anymore, didn't care about us anymore. It was just that her priorities just shifted a little bit.
Yeah.
And not that we weren't a priority. They were just different. We were just different. Everything just kind of shuffled around. So, it was an adjustment, no question about it. I won't lie about that. And anyone who's considering doing this has to think about that. Especially depending on how deep you want to get into it. Right. I mean, like I said, she went full throttle. And, if that's something that everyone just kind of around you has to be prepared for that.
Well, and Connie, so Connie sells anywhere between, 40 to 55 homes. And I think she was anywhere between 15 and 18 million in sales volume, which is quite a lot. She is on the team, so she does have some extra leverage, but regardless, she's really all in and she's been amazingly successful. And that happened fairly quickly because of who she is, what her skill set is, and how connected you guys are in your community. And so that happened really quickly. So when the thing that I think a lot of spouses don't realize is, get into real estate. That sounds really fun. Go for it. And what you don't realize is that real estate is a lifestyle career. I mean, it's part of every aspect of your life. And I know for me personally, Ed and I both are fully involved in this real estate career. So we fully understand each other. What's it like learning that aspect of it? I mean, did you realize how much it would take over every aspect of your life when she got in?
Absolutely not. And
Yeah.
absolutely not. And that's a really interesting point, right? And even like the things over the course of time that I've learned about real estate and that I've learned from just from osmosis, and our offices at home are kind of right next to each other. So I hear things, and it really is. I have to say, what has really changed for me is my view of what being a real estate agent is and what being a really good real estate agent is. And I think that's a really important distinction, right? Because I actually do have the opportunity to observe her and see her, and it's amazing to me. And I say this with an amazing sense of pride.
Right.
Like I see her compared to others and people she works with, and not to disparage anyone, but like, other agents and like people that she works with. And it amazes me how much just how good she is at it. Like the way she just has this calming effect on every emergency and crisis that happens. And what people I think don't realize about real estate agents is, people think, oh, I can sell my house. It's easy. It's a hot market. All I have to do is throw a sign up or whatever, and I can sell my house by owner, and I can save a bunch of money and all this other stuff. But and by the way, for the record, before she got in the business, I probably was guilty of thinking that too. But now I've seen her, and I've seen the market, and I've seen how the general process works and the complexities that come up in a transaction. And like, it's amazing to me. And I look at her way of handling things compared to some of the other agents she works with and the way they handle things. And just generally, I've come to have this immense respect for real estate agents in general, and particularly good ones. And I talk to people all the time, and I'm like, I cannot stress enough the difference between working with a really, really good agent and just an agent. And there is a massive, massive difference because I see it every day, and not just because she's my wife, but I literally see it every day. I see it in her transactions and how she holds things together and how she works on behalf of both parties, regardless of which party she's representing, because she is the glue. She's the one who makes this happen. And that's what amazes me about her, is that she has this, and she does the same thing with our family. She's the calming effect. She is like the person who kind of gets us through, right? And she takes that same skill set into what she does for her clients, right? She's just always like super chill. And what seems like an absolute crisis to everyone involved, buyer, seller, the other agent, she's just like, it's all good. I've seen this happen 10 times before. Here's how we get through this. I got a number. I can call up her. You know what I mean? She's just like super chill. And that's something that I've learned about real estate in general, is when you're working with someone who is really, really good, it's all good. And they do earn every penny they make.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, what's funny is I can relate with you on that aspect, because, you know, I would be sitting in the other room listening to Ed talk to sellers and talk to other agents. And I cannot tell you the amount of work that goes into keeping deals together after they're already, you know, contract is in place. I always say it's like that contract is in place, and the work that the real estate agents do from contract to it actually closing is incredible, because so much happens and they have to really understand how to negotiate and how to do that work. So the challenge is sometimes that comes up, you know, at dinner time, or when you're about to, like, right when you sit down to have a nice dinner out together, and or in the morning when you were planning on spending that morning time together, she all of a sudden has to take a call or has to show last minute house. How have you two adjusted to that in terms of, you know, do you still feel resentful for those late night calls? Like, I wanted to watch this show tonight and you're still in your office trying to talk this buyer off the ledge. You know, those things happen. I live it too, constantly.
No, I know you do. And you know, look, who's in this does. I always tell people, you know, I joke I'm a real estate widow, right? And, you know,
it feels like that sometimes, right? I mean, that's the
true. No, it's definitely a thing. But again, that you gotta, it's, you know, I've kind of come around to this place where it's a job. It's kind of what she has to do. And frankly, it's what makes her better at it than most, right? I mean, she tries to call some agents, you know, at certain times and doesn't get responses or doesn't get answers. And, you know, some people out there will be thinking, well, that's good work-life balance. And I don't disagree with that. But, you know, when you have an agent, or when you have a buyer or seller who's waiting for an answer, who's, you know, look, I always try and put myself in my shoes, or like, what if it were me, right? What if I was waiting for an answer from someone who was going to buy my house and it was the most important transaction of my life? I would want an answer. I would want to know. I would want, you know, so I think that's what we have to do, is we have to kind of put ourselves in the shoes of the person on the other side. And we have to recognize that this is really, really, really important to them. And I'm just sitting here watching a movie. So it's really not the end of the world for me. And so though there are times when you get annoyed and frustrated, and I promise you, I do, as do the kids, as you know, we all kind of, as do her friends. And like, look, I mean, there's times when she's out with her friends where she has to get up and make a call. And I know they get annoyed and frustrated because, like, I see it myself, right? So, but again, I always try and put myself in the shoes of that person who's waiting for the answer, who it's really, really important that I know, is my house sold tonight or not? I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight if my house isn't sold. I'm going to be able to sleep just fine if I miss 10 minutes of the movie, or, you know what I mean? So there, you kind of just have to put yourself in that mindset, and then it becomes much easier. Like, we make fun of her, we joke, and I do all the time. I make fun of her all the time. Like, there was a day and time where she would yell at me for taking a work call, and she would yell at me for being on my phone and all that kind of stuff. And so me and the kids kind of make fun of her for that, because she now is the ultimate guilty person of that. But, we just it just kind of is what it is. It comes with the territory.
Well, and one of the things that I will say for anyone listening right now, who is a spouse of a real estate agent or is a real estate agent whose spouse is really, really annoyed with them at this point in time, trying to figure out how do we adjust and how do we help support each other. One of the things that Ed has done that has really helped me, and the kids and our family life, like with that balance, is when, when he was selling a lot of homes, he's kind of pulled that back because of our team, and he's been able to leverage some of that. But he would say, okay, I need an hour. And he would go into his office and he would shut the door and he would make the calls that he needed to make. And that would kind of put that like boundary between, being present with us and the kids and going and working. And I always suggest that to people, especially with little ones too, because sometimes if you're sitting there, at your kitchen counter and your kids or your spouse or your family is, around you and they're trying to talk to you, but you're not listening to a thing they're saying, I think that's more detrimental than actually just stopping, saying, you know what, I just need an hour. I'm going to go in this room, shut the door, do my work. And then when I come back, I'm going to be 100% fully present with you. And that just allows us to say, okay, we know they have this job, and they're going to go do that work. And I know Ed has done that, on vacations. Sometimes I would get really frustrated on vacations, and I don't want him to be on the phone the whole vacation. So what he had learned how to do, I mean, it probably took him 25 years to learn this, is he would say, all right, I need an hour in the morning. You guys go do your thing. I need an hour or however long. And so we would check out, he would do his work. And then he'd say, I need another hour or two at night. And he would do his thing. And he said, you know what? We get to travel. We get to take these great vacations because of these phone calls. And it just helps kind of get that like boundary and perspective. And so it miuld be something that.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you. And she does do some of that. I mean, look, she's good. And for the record, I think that's something people just need to learn as they're thinking about getting into this. They need to learn that time management and balance, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, it's never going to be perfect. No. It's just part of life. I mean, it's just never going to be perfect. I do the same thing. At times I'm super busy. At times I have a little more time, and it's kind of an up and down thing. And that's exactly how it is for her. At times she's got 70 things going on, and at other times she doesn't have as many things going on. And I think she's really good at, it compensating when she isn't super busy. Then we get a little more of her and she goes out of her way to give us a little more. And so again, that all kind of just comes with ebb and flow of learning and time and all that kind of stuff. So,
and does that feel okay to you? Because that is something that we talk about a lot, is that there's no such thing as this perfect balance. You're going to be, there might be a weekend where she works Friday night, Saturday, and all day Sunday. If she were to say, okay, Bob and kids, you have all of me on Monday, let's go do something fun. Would that help you? Or, or what kinds of things does she do to help counterbalance the crazy weekends versus time with you?
Yeah. I mean, so it is those weekends where at the end of those weekends, you get, it's always those weekends where at the end of the weekend, you're like, I'm annoyed. I'm not important to you, blah, blah, blah. And, you go through a little bit of like, I don't know, those are the weekends where you're like, I'm not important to you. But then you kind of wake up the next day and you're like, whatever, I'm just feeling sorry for myself. And, it's just kind of you just kind of go through the process. And again, it's probably not, and I don't, trust me, I'm not, real estate agents are not saving lives in most cases, but it's probably not unlike being married to a busy doctor or a busy whatever. And that's kind of what you have to do. You have to put it, and that's what I've learned to do. I've learned to just kind of say, on the other end of that phone, there's somebody who this is super, super, super important to. Sure. Like this is life and death for them. This is my house sold? Am I going to be able to achieve I really, really want this house, and I have been there. Like we have been on the side of selling and buying a home where we really wanted that house and we wanted that phone call and we wanted things to happen immediately, and we couldn't understand what's taking so long. And like what's taking so long is the agent's trying to get a hold of someone. They're trying to get a hold of the other agent or whatever it is. So,
Yeah.
I mean, when you have the capacity to put it in that light, and which is kind of where I've arrived, I'm always
Yeah.
like, look, there's somebody out there that this is really important to, and she's just trying to be respectful and be responsive to her client.
Mhm.
And, you know, that's, and in some ways you kind of get to that and you're like, that's pretty cool because differentiate her.
Right. Well, what kind of, oops, it looks like you're a little frozen here. What kind of advice? Oh, we just froze out here. Hold on a second. We have frozen Bob, but he's coming back as soon as the internet cooperates with us. And I don't know if he can hear me right now. Boop. Well, until he comes back with us, you know, one of the things that I love to coach on, because I get this a lot. And actually, I was just talking to an agent who's not on my team who was struggling a lot with, you know, what do I do when I have an important event that I have to be at? And then I get a call from an agent. And like Bob said, they're anxious. They want to talk to us. Um, they need to know what is going on. And but I'm at a Mother's Day dinner with my mother. You know, what do I do? One of the things that I like to say is number one, if you know you have a really important event and you cannot take any calls, put an away message on your phone or I think you can put an away text message just so people know, you know what, I'm not available between these hours. If you need immediate assistance, call so-and-so. If, for instance, you don't do that and you need to adjust, you can also say, hey, you could do a quick text. Hey, I can't talk right now. I will be with you at X time. And I know a lot of times that really helps people is to say, hey, you know what? I can't talk right now. I am in an appointment. You always say you're in an appointment. You always say that, hey, Bob, he's back.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. No, I was just telling people that one of the things to say, like from the agent side, is if you're with your significant other and you're at a really important dinner or you took your mom out for Mother's Day, you know, and you've got this seller like calling you, texting you. I mean, you really should not leave your mom at the table for a Mother's Day dinner. I mean, there are some things that you need to be careful of because sometimes you might upset your spouse or your family members more than it's worth someone else's opinion of urgency, right? So these boundaries are fine lines. Like Bob said, you know, you want to put yourself in their shoes and you also you're going to live with your spouse for the rest of your life, right? And you know, your mom only has so many more Mother's Days to spend with you. So one of the things I like to do is say, you know, send a quick text. I'm in an appointment. I can't talk to you until X time. Always call personal events appointments, even if it's an appointment with your husband. And that is something else that we like to kind of coach on is, hey, if your husband is really struggling or your wife or your partner or your kids, put events in your calendar to spend with them, like put them in your calendar and treat them like appointments with your clients. Especially if you can tell that there is some struggle and some resentment. Bob, tell me what kinds of things has Connie done to help when you've been struggling or when the kids have been struggling? What kinds of boundaries has she been able to put on her business or what kind of leverage has she used to help her with that?
Yeah, so a couple things. Number one, being on the team, like that's where I would say being on the team is really helpful.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's a lot of support there, right? So there, if she needs to go off and do a family thing or where she knows she can't be disturbed, she gets coverage or she can get support. She can tell her clients, look, I'm going to be unavailable for the next 2 days or whatever it is, but here's someone you can call. I've briefed them. I've told them everything about you. And, so she does that a lot. And so and that's where having the team is very, very helpful, right?
It's huge.
Because that support is invaluable. And that does allow for her to be responsive to the needs of her clients and also responsive to the needs of the family when it's necessary.
Right.
And, to your point, like she does, oftentimes she'll text the client or send the client a note and brief them and saying, hey, I'm going to be at a wedding. My daughter's wedding is this weekend. So, I may not be as responsive as I usually am. And most of the time that works, but there's clients out there who ignore that. And they're like, well, it's all about me. And by the way, I'd probably be that client as well. So, you can't get mad at them because again, I go back to the thing. It's really important to them at the time. It's the most important thing to them at that moment in time to know, if my house is sold or if I bought that house that I really, really wanted or whatever. And again, I know people lose sleep over it. They can't think about anything else. I've seen it.
Yeah.
So it's really an interesting balance, and you just have to kind of be patient. Kind of take a deep breath. And that was I have to say, that's one of the things, back to your question about the transition and the adjustment. It really was a patience and understanding and all that just kind of comes with the territory. That was a big transition. And that was, that's something that maybe you don't realize going into it. But when you're in a business to consumer thing, and then on top of that business to consumer thing, it's something that's so dynamic, and every phone call is dynamic. Every phone call can make or break. That's kind of an interesting thing. Like, so that's what's interesting to me about the real estate business. It's literally a phone call. Something can happen at a moment in time that can completely alter a situation, right? So it does become, you become empathetic around this idea that people are waiting, and it's really important, and it's emotional. It's really, really, really emotional, right? And so when there's that really high level of emotion involved, then you get a little more patient with her need to respond, right? And sometimes I'm not perfect at it. I'll be honest. No. Sometimes we're not all perfect at it. I'm sure you're not perfect at it, but you kind of take a step back, and that's kind of what I try and do. That it's really important to this other person on the phone that we resolve this right now. And you kind of say, I get that.
Right. And one of the things too, one of the things that I've noticed is very helpful in, your personal relationships with your spouse or your kids, or family members, is having a lot of communication around what is happening. If I can explain, this is what I'm dealing with, this is the situation we're in, we're going to be going out to dinner. However, there is going to be an urgent call at some point, and I just need you to understand, like, that's going to happen. Is that okay with you? And if you talk to your spouse, or you talk to, someone that way, and you just are really communicating at a high level, because I think what I never liked was kind of being left in the dark. I never liked not knowing what was happening on the other end of the phone. And I think that's also an interesting concept is, sometimes the spouse wants to get a little bit too involved in how the deal is going and the play-by-play and what is happening. And I know I used to get that way. And then Ed, if he was on the seller side, would say, I don't want to talk about it. And then I would get really frustrated. Well, I do want to talk about it. I want to know what's happening, because I've been waiting and being all patient and quiet this whole time. So there's a lot of this, like, communication, this back and forth that needs to happen. If it's a situation, he's learned how to say, you know what, I just can't talk about real estate anymore. I really don't want to share the details. I can share it with you tomorrow. And also, as an agent, saying, hey, honey, here's what's happening, or this is going to be a really busy weekend. I just need you to know this. I've got appointments all day, Saturday, Sunday, and let's plan something good on Tuesday. I'll take Tuesday off. And then also, if you're the spouse or the partner or the family member, it's okay to say, hey, I'm here you need to give me some time. I need some attention. I'm feeling really lonely right now, or I'm feeling really, off. So I think that's okay to say, to make them aware of what
Yeah,
they're
it's funny you
feeling.
say that because and she's pretty good at that. She's pretty good at this is gonna be a hell weekend. This is gonna
Mhm.
be, she's pretty good at giving us the heads up. And so that's helpful. It's certainly helpful to know that in advance because you can kind of prepare yourself or find other things to do or whatever. So she actually is very good at that. But it's funny you say like when you want to get involved in the deal and things like that. One of the things I've learned over time is to just not get involved in the deal. Because every time I try and get involved in the deal, we end up getting a fight because we don't agree on how to do something, or I'll give her some. I'll say, well, here's what I would do, and that just annoys her, and because I'm like I'm a sales guy too, so
Right.
so I've learned to just kind of not even bother because again, it's I having been there, like if I'm at the end of a deal and I'm trying to negotiate a deal at the end, the last thing I need is a bunch of people chirping in my ear about what I'm doing wrong
Right.
or what I'm doing right. So I kind of have to learn that and back off a little bit every now and again sometimes too. So
Well,
and
and
she's
that's funny that you say you don't get involved in it. And that's huge. That is a really big piece of advice for a spouse or a partner, because you kind of want to, it's fun. It's exciting. You want like, what happened? What's happening? Um, at some point though, it can lead to some difficult conversations. It can lead to frustration. If I've learned, if Ed has a really fun deal going on or a really challenging deal, he'll tell me when he needs to tell me, or he'll talk about it when he needs to talk about it, and then I listen. But I try not to. I check out, um, and that's okay.
yeah. Well,
You
it's
know,
hard, it's hard too because you just through being there and being in the room and like being in the house, like you learn the business through osmosis a little bit. Like I feel like I probably know as much about being a real estate agent as most real estate agents do.
yeah,
And
you probably know
over
more.
yeah, I mean over the course of time, right? You just
Yeah,
kind of know and you pick up things, and so then you feel qualified to, give your advice or give your opinion and that tends to be bad. That's a bad idea. At least for me, because it's not that it's necessarily the wrong opinion or the wrong advice. It's just advice that sometimes it's the timing of when you want to give it because it's like I said, it's like an intense crunch time, and the last thing you need is people chirping. So you
mhm,
just kind of have to learn all that, and it kind of again, a lot of it, to be very honest with you, is just learning it over
yeah,
time,
yeah,
especially if this person that you're with is going to go full gun. Like, I mean, there's agents out there, I think, that sell 5, 6, 7 houses a year,
mhm,
right? And they're just kind of in it to whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. It's, but it's just a different mindset. It's a different lifestyle. It's totally different than when she's doing it like 24/7. And she literally does it 24/7.
mhm,
So, in to the to your point, like she sells 50 houses a year, whatever it is. Well, that's a lot, I
mhm.
think.
Yeah,
It
it's a
feels
lot.
like a lot to me. But again, I know sometimes she does deals with someone who does 3 houses a year, or 4 houses a year, or something like that. So it's just
Right.
there's just different ways to go about doing it. And when you're in it like the way she is, there you just learn things over time. You learn what's off limits to talk about, when it's off limits to talk about it, when to back off, when to move forward. It's just like anything else. You just learn over time, right?
Yeah, and that's great. And I love how supportive you've been to Connie. And I really think that that supportive spouse and that person, being the cheerleader, I know you're her number one cheerleader. You will do all of her cheering for her because she's so humble. And I think that leads to just more success, more fulfillment, more happiness. And when your spouse is really fulfilled and happy, it really does make for a better life overall. And so I think it's a lot of communication. Do you have any other advice that you would give agents as we wrap up, or their spouses?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only advice I would give is just be patient, go with the
Mm,
flow.
yeah.
It's all about for me, she's happy. And that's so I have to kind of think about that. Like, so if she's feeling, happy wife, happy life, right? So when she's happy and fulfilled, that kind of manifests in other areas too. So
Sure.
That, so that's there is absolutely a give and take and a balance and all that kind of stuff. And there are frustrating times
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, it's really good. It's a really good living. It's a great way to help people.
Yeah.
I love the way that she makes people happy and she helps people achieve their goals and all that kind of stuff. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
And that's so powerful, Bob. Like, you've learned how to really shift your focus and focus on, the people that she's helping and focus on her. And, sometimes we get a little bit focused on ourselves and how we're uncomfortable or we're not getting our needs met. And that's normal and that's natural, but it's also important to meet in the middle, right? And that is why you've been married for 35 years. And
yeah, like, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's a really cool feeling to see people, to see a young couple get that house that they really,
yeah,
really wanted. And
yeah.
that they got that house because of her.
Mhm.
And that's cool.
It
And,
is.
Someone else, they may have not gotten the house. So like, and I know that sounds weird, but it, like you can tell, I can tell by the way she managed the process. I can tell by the way she managed the transaction. I could tell that it was, it was because of her that outcome happened.
Mhm.
And that's cool. So, and it makes her happy. It makes her fulfilled. It makes her happy when her clients are happy. And, so there's a kind of a coolness to the whole thing that I think at the end of the tunnel, that's when you see those really good positive outcomes and you see the happy people and the happy families and, that's kind of makes it worth it.
It does. It does. Bob, thank you so much for your time. I think that this conversation is going to be so helpful to so many. And I'm sure, because I know Bob really well, that if anyone was really struggling and wanted to talk more about just how he got to this really positive point in his being married to a real estate agent, I'm sure he'd be happy to chat with anyone. So I can definitely get you in touch with Bob.
Sure
And
thing. All right. Well,
I
hopefully that was helpful, Julie. Thank you. I'm
it
sorry
was
for the
awesome.
technical glitch there in the middle.
No, no worries. It was perfect. Thanks so much, Bob. Have
All
a
right.
great
We'll see you
day.
soon. All
Okay, take
right.
care.